I know that these episodes have been talked about by pretty much everyone in respective communities, since that Cracking Miss Croaker is the least favorite episode of the entire show of Amphibia, which is why that I'm gonna be comparing it to a season 3 episode that has similar plot structures as this, but done much more better. And that episode is Feud. I've been thinking about doing a video like this for quite some time, especially since that even though that Amphibia came to an end last year, it's not going to stop me from making a video centering around one of its worst episodes, while one of the most underrated episodes from season 3. Cracking Miss Croaker, in my opinion, just like everyone else, is the worst episode of the entire show. Granted, there may be debates on other episodes from season 1 and maybe in seasons 2 and 3 that are considered worse, or just as worse as this or then, but let me tell you, even though that if I binge watched season 1 again in order to give it more attention as the same way as seasons 2 and 3, it wouldn't change the fact that this episode isn't really the best when it comes to structuring the characters. Like, season 1 was basically it's basically humble beginnings for Amphibia, which is the same way as other cartoons had humble beginnings with their first seasons. Which is really saying something, considering that Amphibia Season 1 was honestly the most difficult seasons for me to get into. Like, I still rewatch the episodes, but at the same time, looking at these episodes, especially this, it really sums up that humble beginnings is still a thing when it comes to 4 seasons, and not only in cartoons, but basically any other show. And let me tell you, this episode is really a prime example on what humble beginnings is like in shows that have episodes that focus on the character being deranged, also doing retcons that not that big, but when it comes to storytelling purposes, it will. It really sums up that if you skip this episode, you miss nothing at all. The plots of both episodes is in Cracking Miss Croaker. Sprig desperately wants Mrs. Croaker to like him, just like as everyone else likes him in town. Knowing how that this retcons how Sprig was established in the very first episode, it really shows what humble beginnings feels like. In Feud, Sprig needs to find a way to help out Anne and her mother to get rid of the truck that Ned has outside. You see, the reason is because Anne's mother refuses to send any of her recipes out because it's family secret, mainly family property. But at the same time, Sprig isn't part of Anne's family. Keep that in mind because once I get close to the similarities, you may understand that's why I'm comparing this episode to one of the worst episodes from this show. When it comes to Feud focusing on Anne's family, Cracking Miss Croaker centers around Sprig just trying to get the approval from everyone in order for them to like him. Which makes no sense considering in the first episode, he did terrible deeds that caused destruction. Like, if Polly took the role of Sprig in this episode, it would have made more sense, considering that even if she may be a troublemaker, she is still a newborn frog, unlike Sprig, who is much more older. Feud is a demonstration of what the characters, mainly Sprig and his family, are dealing with in the world of what Anne lives. And believe me when I say this, I honestly felt like that if this was taking place in Amphibia, it wouldn't work, because if Anne's parents were part of Amphibia, it may be have multiple ideas of promising material, but at the same time, Anne's parents aren't familiar with anything that Anne went through in Amphibia. So completely seeing them in the human world rather than Amphibia is a lot more better, and I'm pretty sure that if we ended up having this plot in Amphibia, it wouldn't even work. And the characters in Feud were a lot more better compared to the characters in Cracking Miss Croaker. Like, the only characters that were somewhat good were Anne, Polly, and Mrs. Croaker herself, but compared to characters like Ned, Anne's mother, and including Sprig, they're a lot more better compared to how Sprig was even established in Cracking Miss Croaker. Like, if you ask me, knowing full well that Sprig is a lot more better executed here than how he was in Cracking Miss Croaker really says something. Because let's get to Mrs. Croaker's character. If you ask me, her reasonings of not liking Sprig sums up a lot onto why that she is mostly one of the most likable characters in this episode. There are different ways of people not liking other people, and for me personally, when Sprig is just trying everything to make Mrs. Croaker to like him, is honestly the weakest goal of all weakest goals. Like, I understand that it's something that we usually go with in real life, but the fact that Mrs. Croaker is only just ignoring Sprig and not being rude towards him, it just made Sprig's goal of just finding her lost love even more stupid and really difficult to root for Sprig. Like, if you ask me, Sprig just can't be able to get over the most insignificant things, and when it comes to how his execution in Feud was much more better, really sums up that they learned from the mistakes from one of these episodes. You see, what Sprig is trying to do in Feud by stopping Ned's truck is because he wants the approval from Anne's mother, because if you can tell, Sprig and Polly never had a life centering around their parents due to them getting killed, due to Hop Hop dealing with so many situations, and the fact that when he expressed how he tried to be a good parent figure to them, it just wasn't enough. Which is why that Sprig really wanted a mother like Anne's mother in order to get the approval of trying to accomplish his goal to get rid of Ned's truck. Let me tell you, for anyone who watched this show, it really shows that it improved a lot more after the first season. And while Mrs. Croaker was being calm until the final minutes of Cracking Miss Croaker, Anne's mother in Feud really can't be able to trust anyone, and she's taking her job seriously. So for me personally, it really made the struggle of what Sprig is doing with, along with Anne getting into the mix towards the end of Feud, really understanding, and the fact that it really made sense for Sprig's character to do the same things that he did in Cracking Miss Croaker, but done much more better. And since that Anne is doing the same thing that she did in Cracking Miss Croaker by mostly preventing Sprig to do anything stupid, it really shows that she's trying to take her mother's job seriously, especially since that whole life is a lot more different than everyone else's. But then again, every single protagonist that I've seen involving cartoons, their lives are always different from each other. In fact, there's a conversation between Sprig and Anne, well, Sprig stated that he thinks he's more likable than Anne, only for Anne to cut him off, considering that Sprig was about to mention something that Anne has a problem. This is basically hypocrisy, but mostly a lot more stupid, because even if this is part of Season 1, it just feels really difficult to take Sprig seriously, because not only that he's being annoying in this episode, but he's also arrogant. Feud also indicates that Anne's mother will only punish Anne and not anyone who isn't part of the family, which honestly makes sense considering that Anne's mother is just trying to give Anne's friends shelter in the meantime, and judging of how the development has improved when it comes to the parents just accepting the Pandler's family inside of the home after everything that they did for Anne, I have to admit, this is the type of development that I actually enjoyed from Anne's parents, and it's somewhat a shame that we never got to see more of them in the second half of Season 3. Granted, I'm aware that this show only got 3 seasons, and there's a reason why it got 3 seasons, but still, it would have been a lot more better if we actually get to see more scenes between the Planters and Anne's family. Now let's get into Mrs. Croaker's long-lost love, Jonah. In all honesty, knowing full well that this is the type of material that has been done multiple times in the past, go watch the iCarly episode, I Find Lubert's Lost Love, because as far as I'm concerned, it's much more better executed even if it's also over the top. Because this just demonstrates onto why we never see characters like Jonah ever again after this. I would discuss of how much that this is one of the most predictable ways of ending off an episode with a climax, so I'm just gonna say right now, in the iCarly episodes, Lubert's girlfriend was psycho in the head, but shockingly enough, it's a lot more entertaining than anything that we've seen in the final minutes of this episode. So let's be honest, the climax in Feud is a much more better climax, considering that Anne isn't old enough to drive and Sprig is mostly responsible for causing this destruction to happen. Like, one of the aspects I actually enjoyed, and one of the ideas I would have done in my LGBT story, if I'm still working on that, is Tyler's friend. Tyler is the guy with the light purple hair. Can someone give me an idea of who Tyler's friend's name is? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a shame that he didn't get a name once the show came to an end. And when it comes to the confession that Sprig made at the end, all the while that there's an agreement between the Boutroys and Ned, it made me appreciate of how much that these characters have developed over time compared to the very first season. Mrs. Croaker just instantly forgives Sprig, even though that he mostly caused this consequence to happen, and for me personally, it just sums up that Mrs. Croaker could have been a lot more better if she wasn't easily forgiven. And the ending of this episode is just phoning in on the fact that Sprig actually got everyone in town to like him, even though he doesn't need it to. This is honestly a demonstration of how difficult to take Sprig seriously, knowing full well that he was established much more better from the very first episode of this show. And it's really saying something while Anne's mother just scolds Sprig after causing so much destruction, but this only caused Sprig to feel better knowing full well that he's actually part of the family. Like, it's honestly weird to think that Sprig will act this way, but knowing how he got so much development after Season 1, it really shows. If you ask me, these types of scenes are demonstrations of why Amphibia shouldn't have a sliced season of one half centering around the city that Anne lives, while the other is back in Amphibia. Like, I understand that they probably didn't want to do a lot of bad ideas when it comes to seasonal wants, but if you ask me, Amphibia had nothing to do with seasonal want in season 3. In fact, it would have been a lot more better if they actually focused on the city folk and focusing on the other characters for a change. Besides, I didn't like the second half of season 3's episodes as much as the first half. I mean, they're not bad. Granted, there are a couple, but at the same time, I still prefer the majority of the third season with the characters taking place in Anne's world rather than Amphibia. So overall, Feud is the superior episode over Cracking Miss Croaker, considering that it has the same elements, but done much more better. For me personally, I've rewatched this episode multiple times when it was out, considering that it was something that I wasn't really expecting from Amphibia to do, and considering that Amphibia does a good job on improving itself as the series progressed, it really shows how poor Cracking Miss Croaker has aged. Let me tell you, when I say humble beginnings, it's mainly the fact that sometimes episodes don't age completely, and Cracking Miss Croaker is a prime example of that. So with that, I'm giving Cracking Miss Croaker a 3 out of 10, while Feud gets an 8 out of 10.